President Cardoso, so happy to welcome you on GZERO World.
Thank you.
You know, we've been watching your country as it's gone through an incredibly difficult period with coronavirus, as well as an incredibly difficult period with the economy, the worst recession of Brazil's history. For us, it feels like this has been very badly managed by your government. Is that the way it feels for you on the ground right now?
Well, I do agree with you, but that's my feeling too. I'm not sure if the people, Brazilian people, is already convinced that the electorate made a bad choice, like electing current president. It's obvious that the government is not managing quite well. On the contrary, by denying truth. It's impossible to deny that people are dying. And this is true. See? And he said, well, this is not a little influenza. It's not that. It's different. It's much more dramatic than that. The number of died people is enormous. Every day, increasing, not decreasing. And now it's maybe more stable, the number of deaths, but in a high level. To what extent this will affect the government? It depends on the opposition and the press and to characterize more directly what is the responsibility of the government for the situation. I have been president, so I know that it's not simple. But anyhow, it's difficult to explain how it was possible for the president to see so indifferent with respect to the pandemic.
And my country, of course, has been a very divided, a very polarized country for lots of reasons we've spoken about on this show. Your country increasingly feels very divided as well. They call Bolsonaro the Trump of the tropics. Former President Lula is his opposite in many ways. The country feels very divided, very politically angry. There's a lot of fake news, a lot of disinformation. Why is there so much political hatred and disgust in Brazil right now?
Well, in the last years, the division was enormous. As you know, in Brazil, we have lots of people without conditions of life. They have the minimum condition for a decent life. And Lula represents these people some way. So we need someone connected with society. Lula is connected. Bolsonaro as well is connected with low middle class people. So both are representatives of different segments of society. And Lula has the advantage that he came from the people. He was governing in terms of the interests of the majority of the entrepreneurs, but looking people. He made a kind of connection. Bolsonaro was different. Bolsonaro is more small middle class. He's not a man of the elite. Lula is not a man of the elite as well, but Lula is capable to speak to the elite very simply, very easily for him, very easily. But Bolsonaro represents something against the PT, Lula. And Lula was presented as if he was a disaster for the country. That's not true. But then that was the way that Bolsonaro presented him. And to some extent, Lula assumed that it was possible to be the opposite to Bolsonaro. And between the two, the majority prefer Bolsonaro. So I don't know now what will occur in the coming elections. Probably, I saw Lula last week. He is convinced that he will be again candidate. I don't know if he will have the possibility to perform as a good candidate.
No, I see the polls right now, of course, are showing that Lula would win if there was such a match. But right now is the depth economically and the pandemic, the election's not till next year. It's hard to imagine. When you saw Lula, I mean, this is a man who, of course, had been convicted. He was under house arrest, massive corruption scandal. Now, does he feel, when you saw him, did he feel completely vindicated? Does he feel like he is a man of destiny? What was his personality like at the time? How is he doing right now?
I know Lula very well for a long time. And Lula, from that time on, he is convinced that he has a destiny to be the leader of the nation. Still. If you talk to him, as if he never was put in jail. He never assumed he has some responsibility in the events in the past. He will try to insist on his innocence, and as well as he has a strong party, the working class party is really very powerful as organization because they need him. It is a kind of banner for them. It would be more prudent not to be candidate. But Lula is not a man who respects prudence.
I want to ask you a broader question about Brazil's democracy. I mean, with the years of the corruption scandals, are we starting to see, never mind the political divide, but are we seeing the erosion of Brazil's democracy more broadly? Is that happening in your mind?
Well, I think that democracy, in the sense of liberty, is rooted in Brazilian society as liberty. But there is no connection between the parliament and freedom. The parliament is considered as people which are capable of maneuver, not necessarily in favor of the people. So it opens space for demagoguery, you see? And also that's one of the reasons why it's possible to look to populist leaders. Because Lula is less populist because he has a party anyhow. But the way how Lula addressed to the people is populist. You see? And Bolsonaro as well, in different sense. One is rightist, the other is leftist. I don't think that in the possibility of again something against democracy openly. Maybe today, well, we have freedom. Then there's no incarceration for political opposition. No, the opposition is free. If you look at the press in Brazil, it's absolutely free. So this, I think, is I take for granted. I take for granted. Anyhow, that's not the same as institutionalization of democracy, because people don't look to the Congress, to the political parties as instruments for, the transformation of the country. They look employment, they look the entrepreneurs, they look political leaders, but not the institutions. We are quite different from America. In America, you have the sense of institution. Europe as well. In our case, it's more recent. But it will be difficult for a political leader to maneuver against the institution, democratic institution. We have enormous space for freedom in press, in every part. If you look at the young people, my grandchild, for instance, they are absolutely convinced that they live in a kind of liberty. And it's true to some extent. What is lacking is institution. I'm not saying to you that we are in danger of democracy. It's more by step, maybe, but not now.
In my country, of course, Trump lost the election. He was incapable of admitting that he lost the election, did everything he could to delegitimize that, has caused a lot of damage for the Republicans and the U.S. If Bolsonaro were to lose, and I know it's close, is he capable of admitting that he lost an election?
I think that Bolsonaro, in his mind, I never met Bolsonaro in my life. I never saw him. And I was senator, minister, president, never. He was not considered as a political actor. Now, Bolsonaro is not against democracy in his mind. That's not the way. He came from the army, but he's a representative, was a representative. He deals quite well in terms of within the Constitution. It's different. But he's not acting against institutions.
You're the most important living political figure in Brazil. Is it strange for you that Bolsonaro's never reached out to meet with you personally?
Yeah, it is strange. But this is strange in a double sense. It's also strange that I never noted him. Yeah? This is also my fault, my problem, not to recognize the possibility represented by Bolsonaro. And so this is difficult for me to understand sometimes what is changing in society in Brazil. And Bolsonaro represents the new middle class, which in the past has no importance, but now they have importance. They are numerous. Bolsonaro is more focused on the low classes. He represents the small middle class.
So let me ask you another question that wasn't around to the degree that it is today when you were president, and that's climate. You know, Brazil also in the news in the last year and will be again with all of these forest fires and the clear cutting of the Amazon forest. And, you know, an issue that really has set Brazil apart from a lot of the rest of the world. How do you see that issue? How do you see the rest of the world coming to Brazil now and saying, you're not being responsible, you need to do more?
Well, my mother was born in Manaus, the Amazon. Yeah. So for me, the Amazon has a specific signification, see? And I was very close to the, you know, all the climate change problems, so on and so forth. I would say that's not the average people in Brazil. The average people don't look after the Amazon as a wealth or a problem. And the Amazon represents both. It's a wealth and a problem. See? You have to keep the Amazon going on. I think that Brazil is now becoming more and more blamed by other countries because it's not responsible vis-a-vis the climate. And this is a pity. I think Brazilians should understand the importance of it, to have the Amazon and not just to use the Amazon as an instrument. But I don't know if this will affect elections in Brazil. So probably all this will be more and more. There are actions, organizations looking after the necessity of taking into account the environment. But that's not yet a political issue in Brazil. It's a political issue in the foreigners, for the Europeans and Americans and the world in general. They look after us and look, wow, we are destroying the nature. But there is not self-consciousness of the problem.
Before we close, tell me a little bit about how you see Brazil's role in the world with the United States and with China. Increasingly hard to manage both of those relationships, and I wonder where you think it's going right now.
And we are not fearing the Chinese in terms of Chinese institutions. See? The Chinese are more similar to Brazil in some ways. If you are inside China, in the interior of China, well, they don't have the idea of the government mean for them. They're living their lives, like in Brazil. See? So I think that if you look at the foreign affairs in Brazil, the orientation of the Brazilian government, we have no choice. We have to try to be in good terms with both East and West. See? We don't fear as well the fact that it's possible that Brazil should be influenced by China. For us, as a nation, what is important to be in good terms with different parts of the world, including Latin America. If we have some importance in the world, it's because we have some importance in Latin America. And hopefully, there is not the sense that our neighbors are our enemies. That's not the Brazilian sense. We have, like America, we are composed by migrants, Japanese, Italians, Germans. So we are used to have these people as Brazilians. We look after them as Brazilians. They speak Portuguese. They are forced to speak Portuguese. I think that the international situation, as far as we don't have war, it's okay.
What's the thing that surprises you the most about the world today that you had no idea would end up like this when you were president?
Peace is very important. I think that people don't realize that we are living in a world of peace. The end of Soviet Union and the transformation in China, and as well as in America, produce a possibility of dialogue. So we take for granted that this will be always like that. It's not true. Depends.
President Cardoso, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Bye-bye.